48 kills tag GG, it's What the Moose here, and today I've got another video for you guys that sums up all of my knowledge from season 3 and can hopefully help you squeeze out the last bit of rating before this season ends. Firstly, I want to change your perspective on the laning phase. Throughout this season, no matter what lane you're in, you'd have gone into that lane with an idea of what you wanted to do and probably stuck to it. Whether it's rushing level 2, whether it's playing safe, or whether you're expecting a jungle gank level 3, you go into lane with that in mind and you'll try and balance harass, yes, and it'll be very linear and there wouldn't be very much going on. What I want to introduce to you guys is something that's going to be hard to come to terms with at first, but will become autonomous with practice, meaning that it will happen without you realising it, and in some people it will already be happening to a certain degree. And this technique is basically constantly analysing every single possible outcome of every single action that you take in lane. And in order to be good at this, you need to go fairly deep and follow multiple branches of consequences. For example, if you want to go in for harass, you might wait till your enemy mid laner uses one of her CC abilities. Then you need to be thinking, right, if she uses this ability and misses, then I'm going to quickly go in and try my EQ combo. Then you need to think, what happens if I miss? What happens if I hit? What happens if the jungle is close? Where is my jungler? From this you need to be thinking, what happens in a 2v2 situation? What happens in 1v2, 2v1? What happens if I start taking too much damage? How long is the enemy mid laner's cooldowns? Is it likely that she'll turn on me with the minion damage? Do I have summoner spells? Do they have summoner spells? And all of these decisions are going to happen in the space of literally 2 or 3 seconds during the laning phase and need to continue throughout the entire game. And you can't afford to lose awareness of the game and map awareness as a consequence of making these decisions and thinking through these decisions. And these decisions need to go into even greater detail and need to branch even further in order for you to get good at laning and in order for you to increase your ELO to the top percentages in League of Legends. So, to put this into context for a jungler, you might think at the start of the game that you want to counter jungle. So you're going to start blue on blue side and counter jungle their red. You need to look, who do you have mid, who do you have top, what abilities are they going to skill first, what abilities are they going to skill second, is that champion mid and top able to push fast and get level 2, or is it going to be risky? Who does the enemy team have mid and top, what are they likely to skill first and second, what are their starting items and what are your starting items, who is going to get there first? Who's going to be stronger in a 2v2, 3v2, 1v3? You need to think of every possible outcome. What's likely to happen if I exit via the bot side, and what's likely to happen if I exit via the top side? Like I said, all of these questions need to be considered in the space of a few seconds, and from that you need to think of consequences. What happens if we get first blood? What happens if they get first blood? What's my contingency for jungling? What's the worst that could happen if we die here? Am I going to lose my red buff? Am I going to fall behind? Am I going to be able to gank? Are my other lanes going to suffer as a result of what I'm doing here? Now, I appreciate this is kind of the opposite of the video I made when I encouraged you to make plays without thinking. However, there's a time and a place for making plays, and if you're doing something that's going to have a massive impact on the game early on and could snowball the enemy out of control, it needs to be thought through fairly thoroughly, and you need to be making decisions based on what you think is right. Getting the laning phase down is incredibly important, because on the face of it is fairly simple. You could look at it as this champion counters this champion, if I get ganked I'll win, if I don't get ganks I'll lose, and it's not really that simple. If one person is going through this process and is a lot more aware, is a lot more alert of what they're doing at every possible stage, and is a lot more aware of potential bad outcomes of their decision, and therefore is prepared to react to if something goes wrong. Whereas if someone's doing something with the best intentions, something bad happens, they're not as prepared to react to it, and they're most likely going to suffer, which could have a huge snowballing effect on the rest of the game. Everything that happens in the game is a stem from what happens early game. If you're losing your lane, you lose pressure, you lose jungle pressure, you lose objective pressure, you lose roam potential, and this is something that's so important in solo queue. It's why 20-minute surrenders are so common, and it's why you could see games that's 30-1 in solo queue, and it's why you don't normally see such games in rank 5s where concentration levels are increased and a lot more people go through this process without even realising it. So, how can you guys incorporate this into your gameplay? Well, it's fairly simple really. We're going to go back to basics, and we have to give every single auto attack you do in lane a reason. Every single time you click to move in lane, it has to have a reason. Every single last hit and every single time you harass has to have a reason, because if it doesn't, you need to reconsider why you're doing it and what you could have been doing to be more efficient at that time in the lane. At first, your awareness is going to suffer because of this, similar to the making plays technique. However, the more you play, the more you get practice at this technique, the decisions are going to become faster and they're going to go into greater detail until it gets to a point where your laning phase is going to be unbeatable compared to people who aren't using this technique. And this is a technique that should be combined with the making plays technique. There's no reason why they can't work together. It's not something that replaces the making plays technique, it's something that actually complements it greatly. And if you master both techniques, you're going to notice incredible increases in your rating and incredible increases in how you play the game. And remember guys, it is absolutely impossible to outplay someone unless you try to outplay them. I know it sounds simple, but if you do not try to outplay someone, there's no chance you're going to make a sick play. You see it all the time, streamers like BoxBox, he makes a lot of sick plays, but he also makes a lot of mistakes because of the fact that he's trying to outplay people and he's not taking the easy option out every time. This brings me on to my next point very nicely, because it is so important to be able to play and CS well in a losing lane, especially bot lanes non-pre-made against a counter pick. You need to know how to position well, you need to know how to CS well, play safe and not die, not get zoned out of XP, and you need to know how to stay in the game. And by considering all the outcomes of your actions and all the outcomes of your support's actions, you can get really good in playing a losing lane and stay in the game, having a massive impact on the game after it gets out of the laning phase. And in a sense, bot lane is harder because you have to consider actions for 4 players, even 6 players if you include the junglers, and it could even go further because the roaming from mid and TPs from top. So bot lane has the harder end of the stick, especially in solo queue, but there's no point in, giving up in a losing lane. And to that end, there's no reason why your AD carry should be 40 plus CS behind, even if you're Vayne Blitzcrank against Sona Caitlyn. There are ways back from it, especially in solo queue. The best AD carries in the game, in my opinion, aren't the ones with the best mechanics, although they are nice to watch. The best AD carries CS well in a losing lane and position well in team fights. That's all you need to do. My next point has cost me to lose so many ranked games, and that is that you should never ever consider that a ranked game is already won and take it for granted. Even if your top lane's 3-0, 20 CS ahead, if your mid lane's 4 levels ahead and 5-0, if your jungler's really strong, you still have to play properly bot lane, you still have to buy the right items, you still have to try hard, you still have to do everything by the book, because I've lost so many games because people have thought that we've already won and thought, what is the point in me playing normally? My teammates are going to carry me, this is going to be over in 20 minutes. You still have to keep the concentration levels up, because you will lose ELO, you will lose league points, and it will seriously affect your motivation if you were the sole cause of losing because you couldn't take it seriously. The next thing I want to discuss is something that I've touched on in previous videos and is fairly common in solo queue. However, I found a solution to it. It's when you're trying to close out a game, you need to group, but there's always one person that's always off to the side farming, There's always one person that's in base buying an item, there's always one person that is not with the team. And you need to think to yourself, is it easier for one uncooperative person to group with 4 people who are cooperating, or is it easier for the 4 people who are cooperating to actually physically go and group with the one person that isn't? And I appreciate this might not always be ideal if you're going bot side, losing Baron control, if you're already going to place with an inhib down, or if he's going to be a good split pusher. However, it's also not ideal if he gets caught on his own and dies, and that's most likely going to cause you to lose the game. So unfortunately, the only thing you can do in this situation is 1. Pray that he doesn't get caught, pray that he comes to you, or actually get over there as 4 people, group up with him and get some vision around that area in solo queue. Another quick tip and another thing that you should be running through your mind in solo queue is that if you lose your lane and there's no way that you can stay in lane, especially like top lanes can snowball out of control if you're playing against Riven, if you lose that lane, make sure that you actively win someone else's lane. Make sure that you roam somewhere and win someone else's lane. You know, there's always a risk that the enemy top laner could follow you, but if you're staying top lane, being zoned out of XP and doing nothing, there's no value whatsoever to you being there. So if you lose your lane, do something about it, win someone else's lane. Finally guys, I hear a lot about playing to learn and playing to win, and most people say if you play to learn, you're going to win more games and you won't care when you don't win. So yeah, I can kind of agree with that. However, if you play to win, you are going to be affected when you lose, and you can use that to search for every single possibility and every single thing that's going to help you win more games. If you're playing to learn, the motivation is not going to be there. I'm sorry, we don't all hold hands in this world. We need to play to win. We need to get that motivation to, you know, think, why did I lose that? I wanted to win. What can I do to win? Not what can I do to learn, what can I do to win? And by doing that, you will learn so much more than if you're playing specifically to learn. So, that pretty much sums up for this video guys. I really hope it helps you squeeze out that last bit of ELO, and it should carry through into Season 4 and pre-season, so definitely check back when you're going to be starting out your ranked adventures in Season 4. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Yeah, like I said, it will make a difference. Please like, tell your friends, comment if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you like what I'm doing. I'll see you guys next time.